Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. We will focus in today's webinar, which is a part of the fourth webinar in a four-part series, and we'll be covering financial reporting and specifically consolidation aspects in BI360. In the previous three webinars, we have covered more in-depth aspects about reporting as well as dashboards and budgeting, forecasting, and such. So the focus today, as I mentioned, would be consolidations, and of course we'll touch upon related financial reporting. As we get started, I just wanted to give you a very quick background on Solver and the company behind BI360. Since the launch of BI360 about 4.5 years ago, we've been growing very nicely. And more important to you as a prospective customer or an existing customer is to know that we have now crossed 850 customers on BI360 in just about 4.5 years. And we're growing rapidly across the globe. We did a survey with our existing customers and asked them why did they select BI360. And these are the top 3 reasons they gave back to us. And the number one is its ease of use, followed by it being a complete BI suite. We just talked about other capabilities of BI360 that we've shared with you in the previous webinars. And today, more about consolidations, meaning BI360 is not only just reporting or consolidation engine, but also budgeting, forecasting, data warehouse, and dashboards suite. The third reason we learned from our customers is they like BI360 because of its strong integration, depending on what ERP you're on or BI360's own data warehouse, which could bring data in from multiple sources. We're recipient of many recent awards. Gartner's Magic Quadrant is the most notable I would like to point your attention to. BI360 was recognized as the niche player in Gartner's Magic Quadrant, the CPM Magic Quadrant, I should say, as of March 2014. Here are the 5 core modules of BI360: reporting, planning, dashboards, collaboration, and the data warehouse. And here's how these all modules or capabilities come together, just to get a conceptual overview of the BI360 architecture. On the left, you see the reporting module, which could tap into your data live from your ERP. It could be Dynamics ERP or some of the other leading ERPs that BI360 is integrated to, like Sage and others, Acumatica, etc. So that could be the live connection into those ERPs, or you can report off of the data warehouse, which in turn could take the data feed from any of your ERPs or any other data sources, thereby facilitating your financial reporting and consolidations right here. These are the 2 options when it comes to financial consolidation, whether you do it live on your ERP or on the data warehouse. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, I should say, pros and cons. Especially for some of the organizations, it may be more important to just have live consolidation so they could see up-to-the-minute information from their ERP. And of course, that comes with a little bit of dependency on the performance based on your overall infrastructure and the hardware of your ERP. And of course, when you run those reports, it would slow some of the systems down. However, the other option, that's where it becomes more interesting for many other organizations, depending on the amount of data you're using for consolidation, and that's where you bring that data into the data warehouse, and which acts as much more flexible and robust way to do consolidations, currency conversion, eliminations, and any of those rules can be written in a much more flexible and robust manner, and your consolidations would come out of that data source per se, in this case the data warehouse. The exact same replica, whether you are looking at it in a reporting format or you could be looking at it in a dashboard format. And similarly, live dashboards are possible too from your ERP. Now, when we talk about eliminations, allocations, adjustments, sometimes some of you may be entering manual adjustments. And that's where the overall data entry capability offered by BI360's planning module or budgeting and forecasting module comes in play, meaning here you're exactly the similar Excel interface and you'd be entering your adjustments which go back to the database and allowing you to report off of the consolidated adjusted numbers. Collaboration module brings it all together in terms of enabling organizational users to collaborate across multiple departments, but also be able to discuss your reporting planning or dashboard KPIs, variance analysis, consolidation process, anything that was so far being discussed more in meetings and left behind in meeting notes or emails could now be tracked in a workflow-backed environment. So let's go ahead and take a look at BI360's consolidation functionality, which also comes hand in hand with the overall reporting capability. So our focus in today's webinar is going to be mostly around reporting and consolidation. And what we'll do is we'll begin with a glimpse of those reports and consolidation reports in a web interface. Here's the Excel interface, and the web interface is right here, which is labeled as dashboards, but that also offers the reporting capabilities in the web environment. Switch gears and share my desktop. Here's a quick glimpse of all the reports that are available in my web portal. Once the reports were built by the designer, I could upload those reports into the web portal, and those would be available for any of the end users who are assigned to those reports, and they have access to those reports to run those. I can flip through those reports in the carousel form if I like to see it in that view mode, or I can look at it in the tile mode, etc. More importantly, for me as an end user is to categorize these reports in a certain fashion. So if you notice here on the left, I've categorized my reports into different folders: subledger, budget reports, public sector reports, etc. More importantly, coming to our consolidation reports, I can just go over there, look at my consolidation specific reports. So let's go ahead and just run our first report here. It's called Consolidating Net Income Statement, and I'm just going to click open that. And again, just so you know, I'm being an end user right now and using my end user rights to just go into the portal, run the report, and here's my net income statement. Going from left to right, this is categorized as just revenues, product, the revenue or the account description, and here are the three entities that are consolidating to give us the consolidated numbers. On the very top, we are just using some of the graphical features that Excel has to offer. Because these reports are built in Excel, you can always plot any types of charts, gauges, and make your reports more interesting and visual for the users, business users who are looking at these reports. And this, of course, is always loved by the executives because this gives them a quick snapshot across all the three entities in this case. Now you may ask, this is great, but what if I just want to run it for two entities and such? I can always pick any of these parameters. So here on the top, you would see I have these three parameters the designer has given me as an end user to choose from. One of them is the entity. So let's say if I just say I want to consolidate only Asia and EMEA, for example. I just choose that. Let me just like that. Asia and EMEA. And I say OK. And I refresh my report. Now it is going back to the database, refreshing the report at the run time, and I'm expecting that to be available just for those two entities. You see that? So now you see that it's available only for Asia and EMEA. Those are the codes for my Asia and EMEA entity, and that's why I see just those two. You may also ask, well, this is great, but it would be great if we could drill down to more details than what we see here. Answer is yes, you can also drill down from here. So if I want to go into EMEA, right, drill down, and now I see the revenue by specific account numbers, etc. in those specific drill down pads. Also, what if I want to look at the salary breakdown, for example? I can right-click on salaries, and that's where is your detail by salary. Depending on how you categorize that into your ERP or in the data warehouse, you will be able to get to all those details right from here, which could be the web-based interface. And one of the things that I wanted to also mention is the exact same access is available through mobile interface too, meaning now you can access these reports through iPad and iPhone as well. And we're launching Android and Windows app in that succession soon. So as we look at this report, on the left you would see that I've got expenses categorized by departments, and on the columns you see different entities. So it's easy to look at it that way. There might be some organizations, some of you may be trying to do it, get the data for each entity on a separate tab, for example, and we'll look at an example like that as well. So just scrolling down real quick just so we could see the total. Now that's where your totals are, total expenses, and the net income calculations and everything is just typically as you would see in a consolidated report. This is just one of the formats and one of the examples here. What I wanted to also highlight is since we are in the web interface, many times I get a question, can we download this to Excel? The answer is yes. On the top, you see the download button, so you can click on that and you can take it back to Excel if that's what you would like to do. You can also share it with anyone using the QR code or the link that you see here, or you can download the file, send as an email, or share it within the web portal itself. I can refresh my report at any time, and again, that would refresh it at the runtime. Collapsing this will give me the option to pick and choose any of the parameters. But also, more importantly, if you notice on the left, it also tracks what all different runs of this report I did in the last several days, for example. And here, you notice the first time we ran the report a few minutes ago, it was for these three entities, and that's what you see. So I can toggle back between looking at the consolidation for those two entities versus these three entities with just click of a button. I don't have to refresh or rerun the report, and that is coming from the cached information that I have available. Sometimes this becomes important for some of you who may be trying to do some analysis at a different point of time within a certain scenario framework, for example. So that was one of the examples here. Let's go ahead and look at a few other examples. So I would want to go into consolidation again. Here's my consolidated net income trending report, so I can see it by month, consolidating EBITDA trending. Let's take a look at a consolidating balance sheet statement. Similar approach, instead of the income statement, now we're looking at the balance sheet right here. So now again, you're looking at the four entities, Asia, Canada, EMEA, and the US, and here are the consolidated numbers. You can, of course, drill down from here as well, the details, depending on how much data is there. It looks like in this case, there's not much data for the cash account, but you would be able to see all the details that you bring into the database, or you would have in your ERP, for example. Going back to consolidations, and I'd like to now show you a report where we can see some elimination, and followed by we'll look at another report where we will see some currency conversion taking place as well. And all of this could happen within the same report or different reports. So we'll come back to this one in just a bit. We'll also talk about how could you enter elimination inputs manually, and that's you can also analyze exchange rate effect on certain entities, certain accounts, etc. So overall on your P&L and balance sheet as well. Let's go ahead and run this balance sheet here, which also shows a intercompany elimination. So as I run this report, you will see I have now the same four entities that we just talked about a moment ago. And here, in addition to each entity numbers, we're also able to see the elimination entries right there. So that's what makes it more interesting, that these could be coming from your auto elimination parameters or rules that we would have defined in BI360. And we'll take a quick glimpse later at where you would write those rules, etc. But this is coming from those rules based on how you've defined eliminations to take place. Now, the question you might have is, could you find more details behind this elimination entry? The answer is yes, exact same way you would right-click, drill down to details, and now you see the overall number, that 70,000 rolled up from SAS and SCA entities. So that's where you would see where that is coming from. Now, and also you're able to see the roll-up node, the tree that is being looking at, that this report is looking at. So you could have multiple trees within your system, and here are those amounts, 45 versus 25,000, making it a total of 70,000. And here on the left, you would see this is the originating entity, and here is the corresponding entity right there. So Asia, corresponding entity is U.S. Similarly, Canada, corresponding entity is U.S. And these are the roll-up nodes within the hierarchy. So that's what gives us those details right here. So no more need to go into yet another report or another software, for example, to get to those details. Those would be available right from here. That being said, let's take a look at a currency conversion report as well. And by the way, the previous report that we just saw, that was doing currency conversion as well. All those numbers that we saw were in the report that we just saw. It was already showing all the entries being converted into one currency. It was US dollars, if you notice that. The report that we are now seeing is specifically converting one entity into local currency, in this case Canadian dollars to USD, right there. So similarly, if I choose another entity to say, well, run it for Asia, for example, and now I'm expecting to show me for Hong Kong dollars converted to USD. Now you may ask, where is all this logic sitting? How is this conversion happening? Where do you save all those currency rates, daily rates, monthly rates, etc.? And how do you take that into account on the balance sheets and the income statement, etc., depending on whether it's average or statistical and so on? All of that is happening in the data warehouse, which is one of the ways we mentioned. You can do consolidation. So if you're already doing all of this in your ERP, then the live consolidation may also work for you. But otherwise, if you're not doing this in your ERP, we can get those feeds into the consolidation database, also known as the data warehouse, and that's where this would happen. Now, while we are in the portal, I just wanted to switch gears, show you a quick glimpse of a dashboard, just so you have a different view of what dashboards could offer. Right within the reporting portal, you can also deploy your dashboards. So now if you were looking to see your total revenues by entities, you can, of course, in this case, it's showing me 4 different entities, but in this, you could also get them consolidated depending on how you plot your charts. In this case, I just noticed that, well, U.S. is doing fairly well, but Asia is doing better. Let me see how is U.S. doing, and I can click on U.S., and now you see all of the rest of my charts and gauges refreshed. This is not a specific financial consolidation dashboard, but the concepts are very similar. Right now, we're looking at a sales and marketing dashboard, and that's what you would see. Now, when I clicked on U.S., everything else refreshed. Here I see that the expense, looks like that the travel expense is quite high. I mean, I might be interested in seeing what might be happening here. Click on that, and now I can see what all departments are contributing to that travel expense. Looks like admin is probably highest, and there might be more reasons. I can drill further onto it. Similarly, on the right, you can see customer sales. So the top customers that we have versus the top products we're selling. And if I'm interested in drilling further into a top customer to see what all products they bought, I can do that. Vice versa, I can click on top product sales and drill down to see who are the customers who bought that specific product. So those are different types of data points you can bring up into your dashboard, and similar concepts would apply if you're looking to have a financial consolidation dashboard laid out by entity, showing you the accounts or specific accounts, let's say cash balances or some of the other matrix. They could appear right here, debt equity ratio or any of those ratios that you want to display right off the bat. Those could be available in a dashboard format too. So let me just go back here. And one thing I wanted to, as I close out the web portal session, I just want to mention that you can control access to any of these reports or dashboards by going into library administration, which is where you would assign different items, meaning reports or dashboards, to different users and various roles. You can see I can go back between different reports, users, and these are different roles that you could create. So You can also look at statistics of who's running how, what reports, what dashboards, which might help you further improve some of those reports or dashboards. Now, what we'll do next is we'll move ourselves into the Excel interface where we would also see how we will be designing the report. So we'll do a quick design of a report in a consolidation report where we will also use certain trees to design that report. And before we go into that Excel interface, what I also wanted to highlight is the data warehouse where we are able to manage all those rules, whether it be currency conversion, elimination, allocation, or maintaining those trees and or hierarchies per se. Now we are in the BI360 data warehouse. And what you're seeing here is on the left are all of my modules that are available in BI360 data warehouse, and these are highly configurable. So this is what we needed for our organizational environment or this demo environment. You would choose for your organization what all modules you would need, and so on. So, for example, if I go into my general ledger and look at the account, this is your chart of accounts that is coming from your ERP and mapped into this environment, into the data warehouse. This data warehouse is optimized for reporting and consolidation purposes. So very easy for you to manage those mappings, as well as how you, if there is any changes that you can do in ERP, you might now be able to do in the data warehouse. Now, on the left, you see right below dimensions. So these, by the way, are my different dimensions here, and entity is one of them. So if I look at entity, I will see those entities that we were looking at in our reports recently. So now you see my Asia, Canada, EMEA, and US entities, and those are the codes that you were seeing in those reports. I could have just chosen to show the description as opposed to the codes, which probably might be a good idea for me to change next time around. But those are the descriptions I could have brought into those reports. Now, this is just a simple listing of these entities, and we will, as we move forward, we will see how we can create hierarchies out of these entities. Moving into, actually, let's do that first. So now moving into how would you create a hierarchy out of those entities? Now you see I can create a line of business tree. You see, I have a manufacturing line of business, a distribution line of business, and I can roll up different entities, and maybe corporate US to also directly just that. Or let me say corporate US would actually go under manufacturing, for example. I can move that, or I can create further roll up to say, well, that rolls into Asia actually, or vice versa. So that's just kind of to show you that you can move things around and you can go as deep as, we have tested up to 99 levels. We haven't seen anyone using more than 4 or 5 levels here. So just the idea is you can have as many levels as you would need for your reporting tree structure. And this is your line of business tree. Similarly, now if I want to save those changes, I would say yes. And let me just save my changes first. And I'll make sure my changes are saved. So when we go ahead and create the report, now I want to see that for my line of business tree, I have US rolling up to manufacturing, for example. That may not be the case in practical sense, but we'll see that from a roll-up perspective. Now here we see the geographical tree, which could be another way you roll up, and you could use any of these trees as you run the reports once you've created the report. Now moving on from the trees, and by the way, while we are talking about the trees, I also wanted to mention that here is where I can define percentage ownership of certain entities. So you see corporate Asia is 10% owned by Asia Pacific region, or in this case maybe any other legal entity, for example, and EMEA looks like it's 100% owned, and so on. There could be different ways you could do that. Here it is also showing me that, well, Asia is rolling up there, but it also 30% ownership lies within US. So there could be multiple ways you could have the roll-ups going. Now, so that those percent ownership helps us calculate minority equity and adjusted income statement, balance sheet, etc. In the processes is where you would have rules defined. In this case, you see elimination rules, currency conversion, translation rules, minority elimination, adjustments, and so on. So depending on what you choose to do, these are all done using standard SQL scripts, etc. So now at the bottom, you're not going into too much details, but this is where it says those have become rules or processes that can be run at a predefined time or at the runtime of those reports. And here's my actual rule defined. So without going into too much detail, I just wanted to highlight this is where you define all sorts of your different types of rules right there. Okay. Now let's go into the reporting itself and create a consolidation report. Maybe that uses a tree that we just saw. So I'm going into my Excel interface. On the top, you would see this is my Excel ribbon, very familiar. And on the far right, you will see my BI360 planning and reporting add-ins. Let's go into the reporting and say, I want to create a new report all the way from completely blank report. I'm now defining which data source I want to build the report on. In this case, I'm just choosing data warehouse. It's more generic. And we can use the tree that we just changed also. So now I'm connecting. Let's see, I want to connect to my core demo model. It is connecting to my data warehouse. So now it knows what data source I'm connected to. And here on the left, you would see different modules that we saw in the data warehouse that showed up in that left menu pane. And that's what we're seeing right here. So everything is replicated exactly as is now and accessible through my Excel interface. Going to my GL, let's say, I just want to say this is balance report. And I'm going to call by entity, for example. So what you're seeing is I'm just using my Excel just to just kind of give a report header or report name. And now I'm giving column name. And now on the left, you see in my GL module, I just go here and I can drag and drop account right below. It is asking me, do you want to create a selection group on the row or on the column, or do not want to create a selection group? I want to say I want to create a selection group on the row because I want my accounts to expand down the rows. And as soon as I do that, you'll see in my layout editor, it created a filter in row 8, which is where this is. This is where I can define or select. I want only certain accounts or I do not want certain accounts. I want accounts that only begin with certain numbers, for example, or I want to define a range that I want the accounts from here to here, for example, or do not want this account. For now, I'll just leave it blank. So we see everything coming here. I can expand on the account to bring in the description. If you remember, in my chart of accounts, these are all the different attributes that were in the account dimensions. I can see those and I can bring that into the report. Just simple drag and drop, and we have it right there. Now, the third piece I wanted to do is, for my report, I wanted to just bring in amount. And I want to now define, well, it knows for each account to bring that amount, but for what intersection in terms of time, I can go into functions. So let's say we've already predefined all these functions, year to date, last year to date, this year all, etc., rolling, 3 months rolling, 12 months rolling, etc. Any of those functions that you may need for your reporting purposes, they've been defined. I can just drag and drop. And now if you notice, for column D, it drag and drop automatically my year-to-date functions. It will take that into account when running the report. Let's do a quick test. So on the left, I wanted to also mention that while we are designing this report, this is the design user experience and not the end user experience so far. Now I'm switching my hat to see what the end users would see when I make the report template available to them. They will see the option to pick a period. Remember, we were able to pick certain parameters when we were running the reports from the web interface, or now from the Excel interface. The same users could run it from either interfaces that's possible that they would like. Now here, as soon as I pick a period and run the report, you see that certain data refreshed. So in less than a minute, we at least got our report structure going. And looks like there are some statistical accounts showing up on my report, which I do not want on this trial balance report. So I can say, well, show me the accounts only less than 90,000, because it seems like greater than 90,000 is the statistical accounts. So I can go back, make that quick change, go into my row filter, and say, show me the accounts that are less than 90,000. So that is just to make sure that we got that taken care of. Okay. Maybe I went too fast. Let's try again. Okay, sorry about that. Let me just see if that might be something else happening here. It might have to do with how that data is populated, but apologize, I don't know exactly why that is happening. That's really not an error that should happen right here. So probably Murphy's Law does work. But I'll skip that part. What I wanted to show you primarily is also now talking about the trees. I'm now selecting the sheet filter. Remember the entity parameter that we saw? And these are different leaf level nodes of that entity dimension. I'm just going to bring in my entity as a sheet filter. It is asking me, do you want to create a new parameter? I'm going to say yes. And I want to select it in a tree format. And I also want to let me select that entity roll up, and I will give you the result based on that. So now as I switch to the end user mode, now you see I've got 3 trees defined for me, and here is the line of business tree right there. Remember, we moved US under manufacturing, so that's what we are seeing here. I can now pick US and run the report. So now it is giving me the report just for the US. What if I want to run it for manufacturing? Refresh, rerun, and now it is giving me for manufacturing. But what if I want to see each of these entities as different tabs in my report? Very easy to do. Go back to the design tab, go back into my entity filter, which I can bring from here to report parameters, edit my entity parameter, and I can just check this button called create sheet per value, and that would do that for me, meaning whatever node I select in my entity hierarchy, in this case now manufacturing, rerun the report, and now see at the bottom what happened. Manufacturing, corporate Asia, corporate US. Similarly, if I go a little bit up and I want to say, just give me for the entire roll-up, for my entire line of business tree with manufacturing, distribution, and all entities underneath, rerun that, and now at the bottom you would see that is my total consolidated level, followed by manufacturing and the child underneath, or the entities rolling up to manufacturing, and on the far right you'd see distribution, corporate Canada, and EMEA. So all based on one single template that we defined, and that is coming up based on just this 3 rows that we defined right here, or 3 columns. I can make further changes to it to say, well, what if I want to bring in last year to date and do some little bit of formatting here? I can go back to my function, bring last year to date. You saw that I just hovered over and dragged the amount over here. And here I can say, write the variance, this minus this. Let's say I do a total. And I can do some formatting. That is just to kind of give you a little bit of feeler as to how you would be using the standard Excel features that we've all come to learn over the years, and those will be available right here. Now let's say I want to give conditional formatting, let's say blue bar here, and of course you can define rules when those colors should change, yellow, red, green, and I just gave a different conditional formatting for year-to-date versus last year-to-date. What if I want to change the label to say I want this to read YTD versus last year-to-date? Maybe make them central. And let's read on the report. So now you would see that with those quick changes, we're able to now have a little bit more formatted report going, and now you see it retained all of my changes. But at the same time, below in the tab, you would see line of business tree, manufacturing, corporate Asia, US, distribution line of business, roll up from Canada, and EMEA. One of the things you did not see me do is I did not define the drill down or design the drill down, but I can right click here and drill down to details. And now you see all of those details are available right here. I did not design this drill down in the last few minutes we've been writing this report. This is what I mentioned, that depending on what data you would have in your ERP or more than likely in the data warehouse, your consolidation database, you would be able to drill down all the way. And since we drilled on EMEA, you will see all my transactions are showing up in euro like this. One of the things I noticed I did not do in this is I did not do any decimal selection. So I can, of course, any changes I make to this, I'll always go back to the designer mode. I'll select this and say decrease the decimals. And now you'll see all of those decimals are gone. So again, it's very simple and easy to do right here in terms of what you would want to achieve with your consolidation reports. Now, this is one of the simpler consolidation reports we did. And on the left, you would see different trees that we could use, and you can have as many trees. I could take the exact same report and now run it for another tree and say, well, I want to see the geographical tree and run it for Asia Pacific region. That could be just another roll-up, and now you see at the bottom it's rolling up for Asia Pacific, same entities rolling up in a different manner, for example, or different entities rolling up to different nodes. So many of you, we understand, would have management reporting options that you need versus SEC reporting, etc. All of that is possible to do right here in the way we are looking at. And of course, as I mentioned, this is one of the simpler examples. You could include currency conversion, minority equity, as well as your overall allocation and elimination rules to apply to any of these reports. So that being said, I just wanted to do a quick recap of what we covered today, switching gears back to our presentation here for the slide. And that's what you see we covered here, reporting and consolidation. Most of the examples we looked at today were running on the data warehouse, and similar option is available for you to run off ERP. With some, there would be, of course, some limitations when you're running off of ERP, as I mentioned earlier, but the same thing, again, would be available in different formats as dashboards, which we also saw.